Gracias por escuchar otro episodio más de Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa. ¡Empezamos! Gracias por escuchar otro episodio más de Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa. ¡Empezamos! Bienvenidos a otro episodio más de Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa. It's a pleasure having you share this space again with me, co-hosting Empodérate. ¿Cómo estás, Fátima?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to be here again and have our guest, Cindy Garcia, our CPLC de Colores director. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No, of course. Es un placer. A Cindy la conocemos ya de algunos años y hay unas cositas que le vamos a preguntar después. So we're going to do this a little bit in English, a little bit in Spanish.
Love it.
Entonces, platíquenos primeramente, antes que hablemos un poquito más de qué es de colores, platícanos de ti. Where did you grow up? Where is your family from?
Yeah, so my family is from El Salvador. Both of my parents. I was born in California, in Glendale, California. We moved over here to Arizona when I was 3. My dad bought a house randomly and just moved us over here. And we haven't looked back since. I pretty much grew up in Maryville my whole life. And so it's been an honor to be able to come back and to serve the community where I grew up in. And you know, also too, my parents being immigrants, like that has also shifted my whole view of everything, because I was born here, I'm American, but I'm also a child of immigrants. And so just growing up with that has been a huge impact in like just life in general, you know? And so I went to school, I went to college in Tucson, Arizona. So I went to the U of A.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I get that a lot. I know. I'm a rock crowd here in Phoenix. I honestly love Tucson. The food's amazing, and it's. I was there for
our atmosphere too. It's just like this really tight community.
It really is. It really
beautiful.
is, and I do miss it. I visit a lot. I was there for 14 years. I had my kids there. I got married there, and then we decided to move back here once my kids' daycare closed, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do, right? And so I came back to Phoenix, and I live in Buckeye now, so it's not technically Phoenix,
still
right?
The west side.
Still the west side. But just working
a little
here.
Closer to LA.
I know, right? When I go visit family. But you know, just we just sold my childhood home not too long ago, and so I worked extremely close to where I grew up, and so I went to Carl Hayden. I technically didn't go to Carl Hayden. I was a cheerleader at Carl Hayden back in the day.
Me too.
Yeah, stop it. No way. Do you guys remember the cheers? That's so cool.
For one season.
Oh my gosh, that's so
soccer,
fun.
Yeah.
Well, and
I was looking for something to do after school that
Same
would
here.
keep me outside the house.
Yes, same here.
And my mom would be okay with.
That is the trick.
And
that
then
is the trick.
And we were able to go to the games.
That is true.
It's fun.
It's like, sorry, Mom.
I know.
I'm in a
to.
team. I'm in a team. They're counting on me.
Do you remember any of the cheers, or do you?
No.
No? Okay. So not long enough.
I try to forget the pictures still.
And if I said yes, I wouldn't tell you, because you would probably ask me to do it.
Comparison.
I know.
No, but it was fun. It was interesting.
It is so much fun. And just, working in the same community, it's just, it feels like home still, right?
Yeah.
And it's just makes it extra special.
How was it for you, like selling your childhood home? Did you have any like special connection to it? I'm guessing.
Yes and no. We'll probably go into a little bit deeper when we talk about it, but because my parents did go through a lot and they're now divorced. And so we do have a lot of like good memories, but then also bad memories in the house. And so I think when both of my parents divorced and then they moved to different homes, it was like a fresh beginning for both of them. And so I feel, especially for my mom, that she now that she has her own home and she's like redoing it however she wants to do it. And she's just more free. And so to just do whatever she wants. And so I feel like that home seems more happier than my childhood home because of like what we went through as a kiddos, And so, but it's still, I have good memories as a kid, like going to school, going to cheerleading, I did a lot of extracurricular activities to keep me busy. And so those are the good memories that I have of my neighborhood.
Yeah. What are some experiences that you're comfortable with sharing about that home? Like what it was for you growing up there?
Yeah. My parents went through a lot just in the relationship in general. And so, they were amazing parents, but they weren't good partners. Right. So, my dad, he worked really hard. My mom did too. Like I know I get my work ethic from both of them. My whole family is the same way. But they did not get along at all, and it was a very toxic relationship. And I know we're going to talk about domestic violence too. And so there was some domestic violence, growing up. And so just seeing that as a kid and not realizing that that's not normal until I grew up later. And then having these difficult conversations too with my mom and my dad, right? Because almost like, not even just having this perspective now, and having these deep conversations like, hey, why did you say that? Why did you do that? And just, I think has also then brought us closer together as adults, with our parents of just like, being in it, like, hey, this is what we experienced. And sometimes they'll say like, oh, I don't remember that.
Right,
you know what I mean? But we're like, but we remember. I think, just in the work that we do has really been really eye-opening and just, perspective wise of how, to view our past and to heal too, because every single human being is in a healing journey too.
So as young adults, as you're saying, right, if you happen to experience that normalcy at home, right, when you feel this is the way, and there are two people that I loved so much and that I respect because we grow to respect them and not contradict and understand that how they live is the way it's supposed to be. Yeah. And so unconsciously, sometimes we're saying, well, this is what it looks like, but it doesn't feel like it's supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
So as we're creating our own relationships, right? ¿Cómo identificamos esas relaciones tóxicas? Porque pueden ser de igual manera como una relación de amistad, como pueden ser una relación amorosa. Yeah. So how do we, as, teenagers in high school or young adults in college, like how do we identify those?
I think it's super hard to identify that on your own. I didn't know how to identify that because I didn't grow up with that, So I think it's so important for schools and for just other programming to really get in there, to have these difficult conversations with the kids, to have these conversations of like, what are healthy boundaries? You can say no, and you're allowed to say no to people, right? Even to your own parents, And so it's, especially culturally wise, it's like, till this day, I'm still not to like say it's a bad thing, but I am afraid of my mom to this day, right? She is always in my head. Any decision, even as an adult, of like, what would my mom think of this or what, And so I do live my life that way still, and I can't help it, right? And so I do think that surrounding ourselves with people that do make us feel safe and do make us feel comfortable is really essential. But I think that unfortunately, most of the time we learn these lessons the hard way, right? And so And sometimes we have to seek like different answers. So you're like, okay, this is not working for me. Maybe I need to do something else. Right. And even my husband, like, I know he's going to hear this, but I hate of like, I've even told him, like, I don't care about cutting people out of my life.
Right.
Right.
Why is it so hard?
It is very hard.
Our culture, I feel,
Yes.
right? To say them like, but they're family or they're friends. I'm like, yes, but they're not bringing us any value or something that, you know, I want to be around.
Yes.
And it's hard to explain that sometimes or to make that a point.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain way on how you, it sounds extreme, but like cut people off?
Yeah.
In like to like protect your boundaries?
Yeah, I'm very cold turkey. Like I'm just like done, you know. I'm trying to see if I can find an example but it's like I had a family member that as a child, I remember I have these memories of abuse, and so. But that didn't click until later on in the work that I did, that when I saw him again in person, I was just like, the memories came rushing to me. And so I was like, oh no. Like, and so now as an adult, I'm like, okay, I'm able to make a decision if I want this person in my life or not. And I don't. And so cold turkey, I told my family members, it's like, hey, if this person's there, I will not be there. You guys can invite whoever you want to invite, but it's okay for us to set those boundaries. And I think, and it feels good, right? It feels good to, I'm creating my own safety and creating a safe space for myself and my kiddos.
And your kids.
And my kids, you know? And so I back that up 100%. Like if we have to cut people out, that's okay. We don't owe them anything, you know, especially if they are making us feel unsafe, unloved, and they're being very just hurtful in general, physical, mental, any type of hurt. Like there's no reason to have that person in your life. And it's there's something that I learned in my past job. That we did a training on loving people through things, even loving, which sounds super controversial, loving, having love for people that hurt you. But the way that it's meant to happen, it's like, I'm going to love you from afar. I wish you the best. I don't want anything bad for you. But you cannot come near me. You know what I mean? And so I think I like working through life in that way of loving people through things, even people that may be difficult in your life, but it just changes your perspective of, yes, I'm going to love them, but I'm also going to love myself through it. Right. And so I think of, it takes practice, I think, cutting people out.
And how do you balance that with like forgiveness?
Yeah.
Like, how do you?
Yeah, I don't know. Cause I think forgiveness is a hard thing for me. I don't know if it's because I'm a Sagittarius or what it is. Cause I've read that we have really big trouble with forgiving people. It's almost like forgive, but don't forget. Right. Cause once somebody does like something and it was extreme, it has to be extreme. Like I love people and I love, I want the best for people, but at the same time, I'm just like, there's lines that should not be crossed. And so once that's crossed, I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, even though if the person has changed, which that's another conversation too, of like, can abusers change, right? That we get a lot. And so, I definitely think that it's great for them. I hope they're in their own healing journey, but I don't have to be part of their healing journey. I'm you know what I mean? I think it's important that we take care of ourselves too. You know, life is very short. And so it's important to feel safe and to feel happy.
And to give yourself and your peace of mind and your safety a priority.
Exactly.
Over all other customs or cultural perceptions of how you should address situations like this that makes you uncomfortable and that people that should not be in your life.
Yeah. Well, and that can be hard too, because then some family, they're like, but why aren't you talking to them? And like, you know what I mean? But then also you don't have to give anybody an explanation.
Right.
Just the no is enough. You know, and I think that can get hard with family too, of course, you know, but they have to respect it. And it's like, I'm sorry, you know, but it's you have to take care of yourself. It's so important.
So with like everything, how you had shared, like growing up to like where you are now, can you share a little bit or about your career journey, how you got to where you are?
Yeah. So I went to the U of A. I graduated with my bachelor's in human service. I always knew that I wanted to help people. And so back in high school, I went to Metro Tech High School in Phoenix. So shout out to Metro Tech.
Okay, you guys share the same Trinity. We should say.
That's so awesome. So I went to nursing school.
I did pharmacy.
Did you?
Yeah.
Here we are, not doing what we went to school for, right?
I changed my major like 5 times.
It's so hard to pick.
Yeah. I'm only 18. I was only 18, but we were only 18.
Well, and it was funny because growing up, I remember my mom's like, you're either a lawyer or a doctor. And I'm like, wait, that's all I have like to pick, you know? And so I remember thinking, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to medical school because that's what my mom said to do. And so here I go appeasing my mom and trying to go to medical school. But it was very, the schoolwork was very easy to me, thank goodness. But I think the hard part was people passing away in front of me in the hospital. So when we're doing clinicals and stuff. And so I could not, or even the sight of blood, all of the smells. I was just like, there are special people that do this work and I am not one of them. And so I was
You're like, I am weeded out.
There's no way. There's no way. And then when I went to school, I'm not very good at math and science. And so I quickly figured that out my freshman year of college. And so I was like, okay, let me try human services, you know what I mean? And see what I'm going to do. I was a nanny which I love to do. I still get Christmas cards from the girls that I used to take care of. And it was really great. Anyway, so I got my human service degree, my bachelor's degree. And then I was like, okay, now I have to get a job. Right. And so like in Tucson, the social work is very small, you know, because Tucson's a lot smaller than Phoenix. And so I didn't have a lot of options. Right. And so I found this organization called Emerge Center Against Domestic Abuse. And so when I went in for an interview, it's just an entry level because I had never really had a real job, you know, after college. And so I told them, once I interviewed with them, I was like, please take me because I don't know where else to go. Like, I love this place. Like, this sounds like such an amazing organization and I want to learn more. I want to grow here. And I don't know what, and I'm sure she doesn't remember, but one of the ladies that interviewed me, she told me, she's like, I see you as a leader one day. Ooh, I grabbed onto that. I grabbed onto that. I was like, okay, cool. Like one day, maybe I'll be a leader. Great. And so that I feel like something once I get something in my head, even like being a cheerleader, you know, I when I was a kid and I didn't go to Carl Hayden, but Metro Tech did not have sports.
No sports. Yeah, right.
So I went to Carl Hayden. I went to the coach and I told her, hey, we don't have sports. Can I try out here? And she's like, well, I'm like, hopefully she doesn't watch this. I'm like, does it like, I don't know if you'll make it, but yeah, you can try out. I'm like, okay. And so I tried out and I made it. But I remember like really, like almost even manifesting it and just really like visualizing myself as a cheerleader, you know? And so the same thing is with this work. Like, once the hiring manager was like, I see you as a leader. I was like, yes, okay. So I visualized it. And that was always my goal, is to become a leader one day in an organization. And so little by little, I learned, I hustled, I tried to soak in everything that they were teaching me. And I think it was called a center assistant, where I helped out at the shelter, you know, getting milk, eggs, like just helping around with the clients there. And then I became a case manager. I then became a legal advocate. I worked at Tucson City Court in the specialized court there. It was the specialized domestic violence court. And it was just such an amazing experience. And I almost went to law school because of that, because I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I made amazing friends that, with prosecutors and public defenders. And it just opened up a whole other thing of like, oh, wow, like social work, there's just...
Your mom was right.
Yeah.
It's like, lawyer it is.
I know, right? And so I was just like, I'm like, the possibilities are endless, really, of how we can help others, right? And so domestic violence, like it's a horrible thing, and it's so complex, and then there's just so much work yet to be done, you know. And so I've been in the fight for like 13 years now. I've been doing this work, you know. And so when I worked at Tucson City Court, for some reason, I had my children. I was pregnant a lot during that time. I have 3 kiddos, and I ended up going back to, there was a leadership position open at the shelter, and I was a lead advocate. And so when I saw the position, I really had to talk them into letting me be a supervisor at the shelter. I think it was a program manager position at the shelter. And so I told them, like, this is what I can bring to the table. This is what I've learned. This is what you all have taught me. And it was so scary because one thing they told me was, how are you to supervise your friends? Because I had been with the company for so long, right? And so there's a shift that happens. Yeah. Even though you don't want it to happen, but there is a shift, right? And so I was just like, well, you know, friends will stay friends, right? But at the same time, I have a job to do, you know? And so I did become the program manager at the shelter. So leadership, the goal number 1, right?
But it was manifested when you started.
Yes. And so it was just such a huge deal for me. And I was super duper pregnant when they gave me the position. So they gave me the position, and then I went on maternity leave for 12 weeks.
Did you feel like you had to advocate for yourself since you were pregnant?
Yes and no, because I was just like, well, legally they can't do anything because I'm pregnant. Like, hopefully that's not a thing. But I almost felt bad because I knew that they needed somebody there. You know what I mean? And so, because you know, shelters they're 24-hour facilities, and there's always like crisis happening and putting out fires, you know, and so it's a lot that goes into it. And so it was really, really rough because I had little ones. And so working moms, it's like, it's a whole nother conversation. Like it's probably one of the hardest things that I did.
Being pregnant and then being like managing all your staff, like especially being pregnant, I'm guessing you have like a lot of hormones running through you.
And I feel like I still do. I cry so much still. And I think too, like just making crying normalizing crying, right? And like that we are human, we're not a robot, and that we have feelings, right? And so, and that's another thing about being a leader. Most people treat you like you don't have feelings. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's hard because they have this expectation of a leader. And so, I just think that's interesting too, I feel like all of my team has seen me cry, really, because the job that we do is so hard and so just emotional, you know, draining. And then also like, cause you care so much for people and you want to see them succeed. It's just hard. It's hard. And to hear people suffer and being oppressed all the time, you know? And so, and then the frustration of like, sometimes you don't get justice. You know what I mean? And so how to work through those feelings and everything. And so, or seeing little kiddos at shelter and just like coming in with nothing, you know what I mean? And it's hard. It's a hard job. And so I think normalizing crying, it's okay. And I think leaders should cry. Yes. I think it's okay to like feel your feelings and being honest about them. So I went on a tangent with that one.
No, that's a really good point. It's true. So then how do you do it after, did you say 13 years? Because I mean, domestic violence, it's such a huge, as you mentioned, complex issue. And unless you see the specific impact that it has made to somebody close to you, as somebody that doesn't work in social services, right? Then you don't feel that it's changed, like as a society, that we're not moving the needle. So then how do you come back and do this every day?
I feel like if we don't show up, who will? Like, we have to show up. And so I think that with all the years that I've worked in this type of mission, I think that I've learned so much that I can't stop now. You know what I mean? And so I think that has given me drive, but then also too of just, I'm going to talk about my mom again, just seeing how my mother is so happy now and free. And and that is because she's not with an abusive partner anymore. You know what I mean? And so seeing that and seeing the possibilities of how people can live another life. You can have another life, and we can make that happen. You know, it takes time. It's not overnight. It's really hard work. But with the work that we do, people have a team of people that back them up through this and go through the journey with them. And we're just another stepping stone. They're doing all the work, right? But at least we give them the resources, the information, the education. Because the more you know, the more you're more equipped, and the more that you know of like, what are your rights, you're more susceptible to thrive in life and to be happy and be safe again. And so
the opposite is that you're more susceptible to be a victim.
Exactly.
If you're not empowered with the information and know about the resources. I remember for me, the Colores in particular, our shelter, we were doing a story that really touched me. Was this lady that we introduced in as a success story. And as I was talking to her, she had been at the center back and forth, I think about 7 times. And I remember hearing her story, and then from the program supervisor at the time, and how easy many times we give up. On helping others, certain situations, like, oh, he went back, she went back, or he went back. It's caso perdido, so ya allá que se las arreglen. Y como familiares, a veces también like, no me voy a meter. If you're in that situation, or if they're your friends, I'm like, no me voy a meter, ella quiere estar, o él quiere estar donde escoge. But knowing that there is a place, there are resources available, so when we can meet that individual at the time of his or her journey, and there's still those resources available. So there is that element of hope that you were mentioning earlier, right? It is here when they're ready, because they can.
Yes.
And after many years, it is possible.
It is extremely possible. I actually have a client that I used to work in Tucson. And then I saw her here in Phoenix. And it was just so full circle for me, because I started as an advocate, and she was she was my client at the time. And then seeing her here and just guiding her through it, and for her to know that it's like, there is no judgment. There is no caso perdido, because you know what? It doesn't matter how long it takes, because there's so many different situations that can happen that can make you go back. The economy right now is horrible. Everything's so expensive. There's a housing crisis, you know, to be a single parent after going through and losing everything, and then having to then figure it out and making it on your own financially. It's hard not to go back. You know, it's like, okay, well, yes, my husband hits me, but the bills get paid. The kids are fed. You know, and so it's super understandable why people go back, or even just from fear. You know, if your partner is not letting you, because it does get dangerous when your partner loses control over you and they don't know where you're at. That can get very dangerous for somebody that's going through domestic violence. And so sometimes it is safer to go back, because then you know what's predictable. You know what, you can watch them. and what's our next step. And so.
Sí, y luego tienes el elemento de la amenaza de la situación migratoria también, ¿verdad? Para las familias migrantes que también tienen que pasar por eso. Hay una diferencia entre la experiencia de un sobreviviente de violencia doméstica dependiendo su género. Es diferente para los hombres que lo es para las mujeres, porque tradicionalmente hemos visto como una situación de que las sobrevivientes solamente son mujeres, pero sabemos obviamente que existe a ambos lados. ¿Hay diferencia en la experiencia in their healing journey?
Absolutely. I think with machismo, masculinity, and just is it a safe space for a man to disclose, and not to be ridiculed for what they've gone through, and to be believed is the other thing, because it's like, okay, well, she's not that bad. Or she's just playing with you, or es nomás celosa, right? And so I do think that it is a huge difference. And I think that just culturally wise too, for in our culture, in the Hispanic culture of like, it's not talked about. It's not talked about. And then, o si no, aguántatela.
Sí, porque entonces se ve como el hombre es débil.
Sí.
Y no puede ser débil.
No puede ser débil. And I'm like, y no es de ser débil o no, es de si tu pareja está queriendo tener totalmente control sobre ti, eso es abuso. Y entonces, it is different. It's totally different. I think there's more openness for women, and more support. And just even, back in the day, like there's a lot of agencies that are still called Center for Women and Children.
Oh, eso es cierto.
Right? The Colores also only had women and children years ago. It wasn't too long ago that we now accept everybody. And so just that shift, I think it is shifting. At the shelter, we do have men. And they come in with their kids too. And so and single men as well. They do go through it, but it is different for them. And just even for them to open up to us of like what happened and telling us their story, and how we can support them. Because sometimes they don't know how to vocalize like how we can support them. And so, but that can be hard for anybody too, right? But, I think there is a big difference.
Y por ejemplo, ¿cuál es el papel entonces que hemos escuchado esta pregunta before, right? As somebody that witnesses domestic violence, what is our role? Whatever the scenario may be.
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody on the street or it's somebody that you know. Yeah. What is your role? Is it to address the survivor? Is it to address to provide resources? What is our role?
I think it depends on your relationship with that person. Okay. So I've been at the store where I've seen a male do something to his partner. I've called police, but that doesn't mean that it's probably the best thing to do either, because sometimes if police gets involved, it can make it worse, especially if they're not arrested, or sometimes they are arrested, but they are let go the next day. And so then the violence can increase and can get worse. And so it's really, really, really hard to figure out what is the best way to do it. But I honestly think is to give the survivor information. And so like if whenever possible, like one time I was with a group of coworkers that we were at a conference, and we saw that there was a lady that was unsafe with her partner in a restaurant. And we were waiting.
Domestic violence survivor conference.
In a conference.
You saw domestic violence.
And so we were at a restaurant and they were eating together, and we saw like he was pinching her. He was doing things to her. And so because we were all advocates, and we're like, plan. What are we going to do? How are we going to support her, or at least give her like, hey, we see this and this is not okay. Right. But then also not putting her in danger or putting ourselves in danger. We don't know if he's armed. We don't know what his intentions are, what he was doing. Right. But at the same time, I think that as a community, if we see something, we need to say something. Right. And so we were waiting for her to either go to the bathroom, for her to go outside. He went outside to get like a smoke. And so we were able to like just give her like a phone number to call if she needed help. But sometimes like being discreet with it, right? Or if you know of an organization that can support somebody, giving them information, giving the survivor, because it's so important to let people decide what to do and not tell people what to do. You know, and so it might not be the right time for them, and that's okay, but at least giving them that information and that autonomy to make that decision for themselves. Of course, there might be a situation where, you know, it's lethal, you know that something is bad is going to happen. Of course, call 911 and do not get involved, because there are people, we've seen stories of people that get involved and they can die. You know, it can get heated really, really quickly. And so, I think trying to gauge, and like also too, there's hotlines, there's national hotlines, there's state hotlines, there's like Colores hotline, where we can kind of guide people depending on their situation of like, what's the best way and best practice of how to support somebody.
Sí, sí es cierto. That makes sense. And so does it make a difference, like, as a parent, then how do you help somebody that you know, si son sobrinos, si son hijos de amigos, o si son tus hijos, when you are noticing some signs?
I think it's so hard as a parent. Now, me being a parent, like you want to protect your children at all costs. It doesn't matter how old they are, right? And so I think having that conversation with them, with your child or with your family member, that letting them know it's like, hey, I'm a safe person that you can talk to. If you need me, I'm here. But if you don't want to tell me everything, that's okay too. Right. And so, but always leaving that door open. And going back to being like that they're not a lost cause, right? Because it does get exhausting. It's exhausting for parents to see their children suffer, and if they're not listening, you know, to their advice and things like that. But only that person, it's that person's reality. And so we don't know everything that's going on. And so just being there for them, giving them resources, and that's hard because you feel like that's not enough, but it is plenty. They eventually will make their own decisions, but just being there for them and just never closing that door, because survivors are easily isolated by their partners, with family members and any loved ones. And so making sure that you're there no matter what.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that makes sense. Pues el tema es muy complejo, siempre lo ha sido. So any reminders, especialmente ahora con el mes de sexual trafficking, it's important to be able to share this information. Is there anything in particular about sexual trafficking that the Colores is there to do for the community?
We do. We have a partnership with the city of Phoenix, and we open up the shelter. So we open up shelter beds, especially when there's like big events, like sporting events and things like that. We do open up the shelter in case anybody comes in that needs somewhere to stay. We have flexible funding to support them with housing, to support them with clothing, anything that they may need in that moment, which is amazing. And so just continuing those partnerships that we have with the city, with the government, federally, of creating those safe spaces for people in the community is extremely important.
Hay situación en particular, una historia que te da esperanza.
Una historia que me da esperanza, sí. Yo creo que los niños me dan mucha esperanza. Los niños, siempre les digo a todo mi equipo de Colores, de este momento que las familias están aquí con nosotros, va a ser memorable para ellos. Y es tan importante que hacemos memorias bonitas aquí con ellos y que disfruten estos tiempos, aunque sean los tiempos más feos de sus vidas, ¿verdad? Que han perdido todo, no están felices, tienen miedo, tienen temor al futuro, pero todavía dando espacio para celebrar y para ser feliz, ¿verdad? Y para continuar la historia, para continuar otra vida y a veces empezar de nuevo. Entonces, un día nos llegó unos voluntarios. Tú sabes esta historia, me encanta esta historia. Llegaron unos voluntarios de ASU.
Gracias.
Y
you should see how she rolled her eyes when you said it.
I can't help it. It's like an automatic reaction. Please don't hate me, everyone.
No, just wait. She's a friend.
Wildcat. It's okay. But there was. Well, now he's a man, but he was a young boy. But he came over with a group of other young people from ASU to help us with the garden. And all of a sudden he just started sharing with us of like, hey, when I used to live here, and I'm just like, what do you mean? And so that was like just such an amazing moment, because then we were like, okay, well, what was your experience? You know? And so he was telling us of all the happy memories that he had here, and just, he didn't have any bad memories of this place. And so it just really gave me hope of like, okay, what a huge responsibility we have at De Colores to make this experience as wonderful as possible, and sometimes you can't do that, obviously, right? Because it's still you're still at shelter. And it's just like, at the end of the day, nobody wants to be there, but it's like, how do we make the best of it? How do we celebrate? And like if a kiddo needs shoes, like, okay, we're not just going to get him shoes. We're going to get him Nikes. Because we want him to be like feeling cool when they go back to school, right? And like, and really thinking of like, okay, like secondhand stuff, there's nothing wrong with that, but to give them new clothes and to give them something that is theirs. Like, I think that's so important too. Anyways, he then shared that he is going to med school and like just all of these aspirations.
And he's getting a scholarship from Chicanos por la Causa.
Oh my gosh, come on.
Woo.
So like, how amazing is that? And so how important that gives me hope for just the future period, right? Of all of the families that De Colores has seen since it's been open in 1986. Like how amazing all of these, he's just one story of like thousands, right? And just that we don't even know about, because people have been there, they go, and then we don't hear back from them until if they contact us again, right? Yeah. And so how inspirational that is, knowing, and that gives me just like coziness and comfort of like, okay, everything that we do, it's not for nothing. You know what I mean? As like, sometimes we don't have big wins and we don't get justice, but that is justice to me. When there's like a family, there's a kiddo, there's a mom that are safe and they're thriving in life, like that is a huge win.
That is fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Pues yo cuando conocí a Cindy, lo primero que le pregunté es dónde venden las mejores pupusas, porque me encantan. Pero sobre todo también, como lo mencionaste, o sea, el hecho de ser una mamá presente, de ser una mamá muy activa, y estar a cargo de un programa que tiene las 24 horas al día. Actividad imprescindible y que incluso aunque enfrente de pandemias hay la necesidad de tener esas puertas abiertas. So thank you so much for everything you do every day to support and empower so many people. Pero ahora mi pregunta es, what do you do to relax? Porque 24
all the steam.
I know. I do a lot of things to relax. I think that's one thing. I know earlier you all were talking about just like self-care and just, like, I don't know. I feel like as a mom, it's so hard to relax, period. And just, I'm always on the go, right? And already thinking about what am I doing tomorrow? What do the kids need tomorrow? Just random stuff all the time, right? One time I almost missed my kids. He got the honor roll and he was going to get a little medal. And then I almost forgot about it because I had a meeting. And so working through that and juggling that is so hard. But it's doable, right? And I think if you really love what you do, and I think that Chicanos por la Causa has been really great with just flexibility. Because I think that working moms do need flexibility. Like I can still show up in both places, not at once, but in both places. And so going back to, see, this is what the thing is, self-care. Here I go
Sí,
back.
pero no vayas a los extremos, Cindy, porque you have to tell that story.
I know.
Oh my goodness, Cindy, don't do that again.
I know. But to relax, I think this year was my biggest goal because I have gotten sick.
Yes.
In the past, and I have autoimmune diseases too, and that's because they're stress induced, and it's just the work that I've been doing that also takes a lot from me, right? And so this year I really had to shift a lot with like working out, eating better, really centering myself and being in the quiet. I need quiet sometimes. And so I think taking some moments of just like even being in my room, being in the backyard, and having some peace and quiet after the kids go to bed, even for my partner too, because I'm just like, let's not talk for a minute. You know what I mean? Sometimes I'll get home and he'll ask me, he's like, should I put salt? And like, I don't know. Like, go ahead. I'm all burned out from decisions. And sometimes like that's what I need. I just need a minute, But I think it's a practice. I continue to practice the self-care and taking time for myself. And I have to remind myself because if not, your body does stop you. And it has for me. I get sick.
En una rueda de prensa, oh my God.
Yeah.
Esta mujer trabaja muchísimo. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a ustedes.
Because I know you're busy and I appreciate you taking the time to come in and share your story and share the amazing work that you do as a mom, as a daughter, as a wife, and as a director of De Colores. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, Fátima, ya nos vamos ahora sí. Nos despedimos a la próxima aquí en Empodérate de Chicanos por la Causa.